born in Beijing, 1957. My parents both working for the Beijing textile company factory. My father was a sales manager. I was 12 years old when I wrote my first composition. I learned my first instrument is a Chinese fiddle called Jinghu. It's an accompaniment instrument to Beijing Peking opera. At that time, everybody knows the Peking opera is very popular. This instrument called erhu is the first instrument I have learned in my life. So I play a little bit. Music from Peking opera. In the school, we have a Chinese instrumental ensemble, so I play with them. Also, I arranging music for them. So that's my first practice of instrumental music. Basically, songs written by a music teacher, or folk songs, or popular songs at the time, and also speaking opera arias. So all sorts of music, and certainly all in a tonal and popular style. The music teacher from the school, apparently he died 2 years ago. He gave me a lot of encouragement. I remember first I composed a song to show to him, and I was quite embarrassed to show my first composition. His attitude is very encouraging, and made me very confident to write more. And since then, I write song after song, and he corrected one after another. So we become very good friends. I studied composition at the Central Conservatory in Beijing for 4 years. First 3 years, still the time of a Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution ended on 1976. So 77 is the new period for everybody. And first 3 years, we have a lot of restrictions to music. For example, certain music you can't study. Bach, Beethoven, and most classical composers, you can't borrow music from the library. It's restricted. Only after 76, the year of 77, so everything opened up. So I experienced the 2 different periods of time. One was so-called dark period. One is a bright period. Only certain pieces allowed to you to study, to play. For example, among Beethoven sonatas, there's one documented, which is Lenin liked made a good comment. So you can borrow that sonata, but all the other pieces you can't. You have to have permission from the party secretary to borrow, to study. So I remember once I got a piano sonata album, so I played one of these in my room, my practice room, being reported to the party secretary. So the meeting was held. All the classmates, we had to. They treated it as political instance. So I was criticized in a public meeting, humiliated. Well, they just give you a hard time, and you always been watched. You have to report your thought to them regularly. I remember during that period of time, they asked me reading what's called the helping meeting taking place in one room. There's several students and teachers come one by one talk to me from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock in the morning, from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the evening, to 7 o'clock to 10:30 in the evening. So the 2 days, just you just can't take it because it's a torture. I have to confess myself what I have done wrong, and most of the time they have nothing to say. They ask me reading a newspaper. The newspaper from first word in the top to the bottom. They just ask me recite this the newspaper, and as a punishment, everybody knows the newspaper from the top line, the date, and the print number, everything. From bottom to end. They ask me to read the newspaper. And if I got so tired and start sleepy, they wake me up again, ask me to read this newspaper. Actually meaningless. It's just ask you not, just don't let you have rest. I just feel this anger and how people treated other people so cruelly like this, and compared with my suffer, with other sufferer from the Cultural Revolution, mine is the minus. But although even like this, make me even remember today that sort of feeling, sad and anger. But I have good experience too. I have learned a great deal from my teacher, my friends. Tokyo College of Music visited Beijing Conservatorium. So they gave us 3 plays inviting 3 graduates to study in their college. So I was chosen by the conservatorian, and one of them to study in Tokyo. So I went to Tokyo. That's a totally different world, and it's quite a big shock too. And I studied composition with my teacher, George Yuasa and Shinichiro Ikebe. And the school says you need 2 teachers because these 2 teachers are very different. One is very practically minded. The other one is very theoretical, no? Theory. Yeah, more emphasis on theory and structure and design, strategy, this kind of thing. So the 2 teachers are quite different. So I often end up complain. One teacher saying that, the other teacher saying all those. So I was confused. But the director of the school says, Julian, that's good. That's what we want you to learn. So now I'm thinking it's quite a good idea to learn in that way because you can get a full picture of the composition. At Tokyo College of Music, at my graduation, they played 3 of my pieces. And I think the performance is wonderful. It's quite a complicated piece. I never heard of my music like that. Just imagine that at the time there's no computer around. So you compose this atonal and with the complexity so-called, style. So I was quite moved to hear the strange sound, interesting sounds I produced for my school, and the performance was excellent, wonderful. In China, I met Australian exchange student. So I married Australian, so she brings me to this country. The first city I lived in Australia is Adelaide, where my wife's family based on. Then I got a teaching job in Queensland Conservatory of Music. So we stayed in Queensland for 1 year. Then in 1988, I moved to Melbourne, studied my master's degree at La Trobe University. My first supervisor is Keith Humble, and Laurie Whiffen is my second supervisor. They're both a good men. I had a good experience. And the way of the writing music different than Japanese, and the style they writing is different. A good teacher not only teaching you good technique, but it's good friend. You have to be a good friend to learn real musical ideas from them. So this is my experience. While I was in La Trobe University, I was selected as a composition fellow at the Tanglewood Music Center in USA. So I went to Tanglewood. I met a lot of composers, including Brenton Broadstock and John Williams, Elliott Carter. So all these big names, I met them in person. They gave us a lecture and discussing about writing new music. Those big names, you can only hear or know the name from the print, from the books, from the videos, from films. But they appear as a real person in front of you. Actually, they're quite normal person. And they very friendly. And for example, I met Brenton Broadstock. After he listened to my music, and he made very good comments, but I can't quote it here. And well, he said, "You're fucking genius," and he immediately pointed out a certain problem in my school. For example, I was trying to finish in the school in a hurry, so I pasted my cutting paste of one of my piano pieces onto my score as an ending coda. He just immediately found out. He said, "Julian, those music not belong to this piece." So obviously he's a very genius. You know, he knows everything. Nothing can hide to him. The other day we had a composition seminar with Elliott Carter. He showed us his new oboe concerto. Then while we're listening to his music in the recording, suddenly there's a guy behind us raised the question. He said, "Hi, Mr. Carter. Why did you write this complicated music? Sounded awful to listen. So hard, so awful to listen." So everybody just quiet and expecting how the master can answer this question. Carter just very calmly answered, "I'm writing for my player. I'm not writing for anybody else." So I was quite amused at a clever answer, writing for my player. So. The other composer we met is Oliver Nasson. He's a great man. He has conductor skill. He conducted many orchestras, but he never conducted his piece. He gives those opportunities all to the young composer. So in Tanglewood, we had a lesson. I had a lesson with him, and he's very sensible. He made very sensible suggestions, and like friends, talking. In result, I wrote a new piece, which is performed in Tanglewood, and also one of my old pieces And after my performance, and everybody applauded, and I had a connection with my publisher. The publisher representative listened to my piece, liked very much, so he wanted to publish my music. So one concert that brings such an opportunity, I think, is amazing. After Tanglewood Music Center performance of my piece, I signed a contract with the Universal Edition. So through Universal promotion, I had the opportunity to write music for different orchestras around the world. One example is I wrote music for year 2000 BBC proms. That piece went very well. Through my publisher's promotion, I also got a commission from Ensemble Intercontemporain. The piece was called Philopentatonia. The piece was performed by them and also by subsequently by all the other chamber orchestras around the world. Premiere actually happened before the real premiere, because the London Sinfonietta wanted to perform this piece with a Chinese conductor. And after initial premiere, I was so disappointed because the conductor's treatment of the piece is I wouldn't say it's wrong, but it's something not sufficient. And I wouldn't complain about the player. Player is London Sinfonietta is a good player ensemble. And I don't know. Only after real premiere by the different conductor, by the different ensemble, the piece really come out very beautifully. Because I just realized for contemporary music, for the new music, you really need 100%, nearly 100% accuracy before you can say this is this piece. It's unlike a classical music. If you play 55% of Beethoven, you can recognize Beethoven. But if you play new music with less than 80% accuracy, still doesn't count as a good performance. And I think the performance of by Ensemble Intercontemporain is a wonderful performance. In 1993, I won the Paul Owen Orchestral Prize. My piece called Filigree Cloud. After 3 years, I also won the same prize again with my symphonic poem, 3 symphonic poems. And the third year, they have to change the rule because obviously they don't want me winning third time. No. My ideas producing new music from old is come from the Chinese music. In China, people, folk musicians creating music, normally they take older pieces, embellish them, and ornamenting them until they can be heard as a new piece. So I take a similar approach to reworking on other composers' work, for example, Bach. Many of my works based on Bach, but I only using the method, but not the pentatonic scale. And the other thing is Paganini or Mussorgsky's picture at the exhibition. So all these pieces have been reworked and until they have something new to say. People ask me why I reorchestrated Mussorgsky's picture at the exhibition. The reason very simple, because I heard several versions of the past reorchestration. They just not accurate enough to close the piano work of Mussorgsky. And I just feel I can do something which is more close to Mussorgsky's piano piece. I found all those versions, the older version of Mussorgsky's picture at the exhibition orchestration, they representing the old generations. Their sound. There are still lot of new discoveries, new technique, new ideas can be put through to this piece. So I orchestrated it again with my ideas. Every movement have ideas different than the usual ones. So it's a new picture at the exhibition. In recent years, I composed a series of teaching pieces using same theme to teach composition, to show the composition technique. For example, I used the very simple, well-known nursery rhyme, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, to write a series of composition examples, to showing different styles, different technique, different period of time, music style. So you can hear Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in Beethoven's For Alice style, Rondo alla Turca style. So in this album, I wrote 126 of them to showing all sort of aspect of composition technique. I learned to play piano when I was 16 years old at the Central Conservatory of Music in Beijing. I still play, but not more. I never think my profession is composer because it is not a profession, and I would be feel very down and a little pressured if I tell the people I'm composer, because it's not a profession. I'm the lucky one because my profession is my hobby. My hobby is my profession. So most people, those two things are not unified, but for me it is. So I'm doing my job as a making music. At my spare time, I enjoy my music. I enjoy making music. So the little down in my life, there's no differences. That was my philosophy, my belief.